The woman at the door had the right papers: work visa, medical clearance, even a reference letter from a Korean employer who vouched for her character. But Kang Jae-won didn't look at any of it. He looked at her skin, dark, foreign, wrong. He shook his head once. Clean, final, no explanation needed because none was ever required in places like this. The woman's face didn't crumble. She'd been here before. Not this door, maybe, but doors like it. Doors that didn't open for people who looked like her. She adjusted the strap of her bag and turned away without a word. Behind Jae-won, a junior staff member stood frozen. His hand had started to rise, maybe to say something, maybe to intervene, but it dropped. Slow, deliberate, like gravity had remembered him. A Korean friend of the denied woman stood nearby. She shifted her weight, her eyes fell to the floor. She didn't argue, didn't protest. She just followed her friend out. Jae-won closed the door. No music, no dramatic pause, just the sound of the latch clicking into place. Inside, the air was controlled, temperature regulated, everything in its place. The kind of space where power didn't need to announce itself because it was already in the walls, the furniture, the silence. Jae-won walked past the staff without looking at them. They moved aside without being told. This was Tuesday. On Thursday, his tattoos would be visible during a meeting with lower-tier enforcers. On Saturday, he'd deny entry to another applicant. The cycle was smooth, practiced, unseen by anyone who didn't need to see it. But his mother saw everything. Madame Kang didn't raise her voice. She never had to. She sat in her office with the blinds half drawn, sunlight cutting across her desk in sharp lines. When Jae-won entered, she didn't look up from the papers in front of her. Close the door. He did. She set down her pen, slow, controlled. Then she looked at him, and her expression didn't change, but the air did. "You're 34. He said nothing. "You have no wife, no children, no visible structure outside of this organization." She leaned back in her chair, fingers laced. "That makes you a liability." Jae-won's jaw tightened, but he didn't interrupt. "People talk," she continued. "They wonder why the heir has no family. They wonder if you're weak, if you're hiding something, if you can be controlled." She paused. "I don't wonder. I know, but they don't. And perception is everything." He exhaled through his nose. "So what do you want?" "Marriage." The word landed like a contract. "Not love," she clarified. "Stability, a wife, a public image, someone who makes you look like a man with something to lose." Her eyes didn't soften. "Because right now you look like a man with nothing, and that's dangerous." Jae-won stared at the wall behind her. He could argue, he could refuse, but refusal required leverage, and he had none. Not against her, not in this room. "Gyu chigia, yoe eopso," the rule, no exceptions. She'd said that to him 100 times growing up, and now she was using it again. "I'll arrange the meetings," she said, already moving on. "You'll attend, you'll be civil, you'll choose someone appropriate." She picked up her pen again. "This isn't a request." He wanted to say something sharp, something that would land, but instead, he just nodded. "Fine. Before we continue, pause for just a second. Jae-won just agreed to marry a stranger to fix his image. And if you're already feeling the tension, do me a favor, hit that like button right now. It helps more people find stories like this. Also, subscribe and tell us in the comments, where are you watching from? And have you ever made a choice just to survive, even when you knew it was wrong? Well, let's continue. Madame Kang didn't smile. She didn't need to. She'd already won. Jae-won left the office and walked down the hallway, past the same staff members who still wouldn't meet his eyes. He pushed through the back exit into the loading area where the air was colder and the walls were concrete. He lit a cigarette even though he barely smoked anymore. The matchmaker's name was already in his phone by the time he checked it. Professional, discreet, specialized in private arrangements. He didn't call, not yet. He just stared at the contact and let the smoke curl into the air. His mother wanted stability. His mother wanted a shield. She wanted him to marry someone who would make the organization look legitimate. Someone soft enough to smile at events, but smart enough not to ask questions. Someone who would stand beside him and make the world believe he was a man who loved something other than control. He crushed the cigarette under his shoe. He didn't love anything, and he was about to marry someone who didn't love him either. The first meeting was scheduled for the following week. A cafe in a neutral district, daytime, public enough to feel safe, private enough to avoid attention. The matchmaker had sent a profile, minimal information, age, education, profession, no photo. That was intentional. Photos created expectations. Jae-won didn't read the rest of the file. He showed up because refusing would cost more than attending. But he already knew how this would go. He'd sit down, she'd be polite, they'd talk in circles, she'd pretend to be interested, he'd pretend to care, then they'd part ways and his mother would arrange another meeting, and another, until one of them finally gave in. That's how power worked, not through force, through inevitability. He pushed open the cafe door and scanned the room, and there she was, sitting by the window, dark skin, natural hair pulled back, no makeup, no performance. She looked up, and she didn't smile. Jae-won didn't sit immediately. He stood near the table, studying her the way he studied contracts, looking for weak points, exit clauses, something he could use later. She gestured to the chair across from her. "You're late." Not a question, not an accusation, just a statement. He pulled out the chair and sat. "Traffic. There's no traffic at 2 in the afternoon in this district." He almost smiled. Almost. Instead, he leaned back and crossed his arms. "You always this direct?" "Always." She picked up her tea, still watching him. "And you're always this rehearsed?" The question landed clean, no venom, just observation. Jae-won tilted his head slightly. "What makes you think I'm rehearsed?" "Because you walked in here like you were entering a boardroom, scanned the exits, checked the staff, positioned yourself so you can see the door." She set down her cup. "You're not here for coffee. You're here because someone told you to be." He didn't confirm it, didn't need to. "Your mother," she continued, "Madam Kang, she arranged this through the matchmaker. You didn't even read my full profile, did you?" Jae-won's jaw shifted. "Did you read mine? Every word?" She leaned forward slightly, elbows on the table. Kang Jae-won, 34, heir to a commercial real estate empire with secondary holdings in hospitality and private security. No criminal record, no public scandals, no social media presence. She paused. "And no personal life." He said nothing. "Which means," she went on, "you either don't have one or you're very good at hiding it." Her eyes didn't leave his. "I'm guessing both." The silence stretched, not uncomfortable, just present. Finally, he spoke. "You have a name?" "Freya." "That's not Korean." "Neither am I." He glanced at her hands. No ring, no nervous fidgeting. She wasn't performing, wasn't trying to impress him or soften the edges. She was just there, solid, unmoved. "Why are you here?" he asked. "Same reason you are. Obligation." "To who?" "Myself." She picked up a napkin, folded it once, set it back down. "I need stable immigration status. A work visa isn't enough anymore. The policies are tightening. People like me get denied at doors we used to walk through." She looked at him directly. "Sound familiar?" He didn't answer. "I'm a public health worker," she said. "I coordinate medical supply distribution to underserved communities. Korean nationals, migrant workers, refugees, people who fall through the cracks." She paused. "Your mother's matchmaker made it clear this arrangement could benefit both of us. You get a wife, I get permanent residency." Jae-won leaned forward. "You think marrying me solves your problems?" "No, I think it trades one problem for another." She met his gaze without flinching. "But at least this one I can control." He almost respected that. Almost. "What makes you think I'd agree to this?" Freya smiled for the first time. It wasn't warm, it was knowing. "Because You're here, and you haven't left yet. Jaewon stood. I have another meeting. No, you don't. He froze. You cleared your afternoon, she said calmly. The matchmaker confirmed it when she scheduled this. You have nowhere to be except here. She leaned back in her chair. So sit down or leave, but don't lie. He stared at her. No one talked to him like this. Not staff, not business partners, not even his mother when others were around. But she wasn't performing power. She was just refusing to perform weakness, and that was worse. He sat. Freya nodded once, like she'd expected it. Good. Now let's skip the part where we pretend we're interested in each other's hobbies. I don't have hobbies. I know, I read your file. She folded her hands on the table. Here's what I need. Legal residency. Freedom to continue my work without interference. No expectations of romance or affection. She paused. And boundaries. Clear ones. You don't touch my work, I don't touch yours. Jaewon studied her face. The curve of her jaw, the steadiness in her eyes. She wasn't asking for protection. She was negotiating terms. What do I get? He asked. A wife who won't embarrass you, who knows how to navigate social functions, who understands discretion. She tilted her head. And someone who won't ask questions you don't want to answer. He considered that. It was clean, transactional, no emotions to manage, no expectations to fail. But something about it felt wrong, not morally. He'd abandoned morality years ago. It felt incomplete. Why me? He asked. Freya's expression didn't change. Because you're the only one who didn't pretend to care. That hit harder than it should have. She stood, picking up her bag. Think about it. You have my number. I never said I'd call. You will. She turned toward the door, then paused. Because this is the only offer you'll get that doesn't require you to lie. She left. Jaewon sat there, staring at the empty chair across from him. The window light cut across the table in clean lines. Outside, the street moved. People passed. Lives continued. He pulled out his phone, stared at the blank message screen, and didn't type anything. Not yet, but he would. She was right about that too. He called 3 days later. No preamble, just, when can you meet again? Freya's voice came through clear, unbothered. Tomorrow, same place, 3 o'clock. She hung up before he could respond. This time he arrived early, chose a different table, faced the wall instead of the door. Small rebellion, meaningless but his. She walked in exactly, on time, didn't look around, moved straight to him like she'd already known where he'd be sitting. You changed tables, she said, sliding into the seat. You noticed. I notice everything. She set her bag down, pulled out her phone, glanced at the screen. Her expression shifted, brief, barely visible. Then she pocketed it and looked at him. So, you've decided. I have conditions. Of course you do. Jaewon leaned forward. No interference in my business, ever. You don't ask where I go. You don't ask who I meet. You don't involve yourself in anything related to my work. Agreed, same applies to you. Public appearances only, when necessary. You attend events I tell you to attend. You dress appropriately. You smile when expected. Freya's eyebrow lifted slightly. I don't take orders well. Then we'll have a problem. No. She leaned in, matching his posture. We'll have a conversation. I'll attend what makes sense. I'll dress how I want. And I'll smile when I feel like it. Her voice didn't rise. Because if you wanted a puppet, you should have kept looking. Jaewon's fingers drummed once against the table, stopped. Why are you really doing this? He asked. I told you. No, the real reason, not the visa, not the security. He watched her carefully. What are you running from? Freya went still. For the first time he saw something shift behind her eyes. Not fear, not anger, something colder. I'm not running, she said quietly. I'm choosing. Choosing what? To stay where I'm needed, not where I'm wanted. The words sat heavy between them. She pulled her phone back out. This time, she didn't hide the screen, showed him a message, short, Supply delivery delayed again. Customs. 3 weeks, she said. That's how long the last shipment took to clear. Medical supplies for a clinic in Seogu, basic equipment, antibiotics, wound care. She put the phone away. The people I work with don't have 3 weeks. Jae-won said nothing. Korea doesn't make space for people who look like me, Freya continued. Every door is a test. Every approval is conditional. I can do the work. I have the credentials. But I need someone who can open doors that stay closed for me. And you think marrying me does that? I know it does. She looked at him directly. Your family has connections, influence, the kind that doesn't appear on paper but moves things anyway. She paused. I'm not asking you to care about my work. I'm asking you to make it easier. He leaned back. And if I refuse, then I find another way. It'll take longer, cost more, but I'll find it. Her voice didn't waver. I don't stay because I have no other options. I stay because leaving means people die. Jae-won studied her, really studied her, the set of her shoulders, the way she held eye contact without aggression. She wasn't bluffing, wasn't exaggerating. She meant every word. You could leave Korea, he said. Go somewhere easier. Easier for who? She shook her head. I didn't come here because it was easy. I came because the need was here, because people were dying from things that shouldn't kill anyone. Her jaw tightened. I don't leave problems because they're hard. Something shifted in Jae-won's chest. Small, uncomfortable. He pushed it down. What happens when your work conflicts with mine? He asked. It won't. You don't know that. Neither do you. She folded her arms. But if it does, we'll deal with it then, like adults. He almost laughed, the absurdity of it. 2 people negotiating a marriage like a business merger while sitting in a cafe with terrible lighting and overpriced tea. But he didn't laugh, because it made sense. More sense than anything else he'd been offered. 1 year, he said. Freya blinked. What? 1 year. We do this for 1 year. You get your residency, I get my mother off my back. After that, we re-evaluate. She considered it. 2 years. Residency takes time to process. 1 year isn't enough. 18 months. 2 years, non-negotiable. Jae-won exhaled through his nose. Fine, 2 years. And separate living spaces. Agreed. And no lying to each other. Not about the big things. He paused at that. Define big things. Anything that affects the other person's safety. Freedom. Legal status. She met his gaze. If you're doing something that could put me at risk, I need to know. Jae-won's throat tightened. She had no idea what she was asking, but he nodded anyway. Same applies to you, he said. Deal. They sat there, no handshake, no contract, just 2 people who'd agreed. To lie to the world together. Freya stood first. I'll have my lawyer draw up a private agreement, separate from the marriage documents. It'll outline everything we just discussed. Smart. I know. She picked up her bag. And Jae-won? He looked up. Whatever you're hiding, she said quietly, it won't stay hidden forever, so decide now if you can live with me, knowing it eventually. She walked out, and this time he didn't watch her leave. He just sat there staring at his hands, at the ink beneath his sleeves, and wondered how long it would take her to see what he really was. The wedding was small, administrative, a city office with fluorescent lights and a clerk who processed them like paperwork. Freya wore a simple dress. Jae-won wore a suit he'd worn to funerals. His mother attended. Freya came alone. No one took photos. They signed. The clerk stamped. Done. Outside, Madame Kang handed Jae-won an envelope. The apartment lease, Gangnam District, both names on it. She looked at Freya. For appearances. Freya nodded. Madame Kang left without congratulations. Jae-won and Freya stood on the steps, married, strangers. I have a shift at the clinic, Freya said. I have a meeting. She turned to leave, then stopped. Next week, there's a charity gala, medical fundraiser. Your mother already confirmed we'd attend. Fine. Wear something without visible ink. His whole body went rigid. Freya's eyes dropped to his wrists. The cuffs covered most of it, but not all. Never all. I've seen them before, she said quietly. That first day at the cafe, when you reached for your water. She met his gaze. I didn't say anything because it wasn't my business. But if we're going public, it becomes my business. Jaewon's voice came out flat. What do you want to know? Nothing, unless it puts me at risk. It doesn't. Then I don't need to know. She adjusted her bag. But I'm not stupid, Jaewon. I know what those marks mean. I know what kind of work requires them. He waited for disgust, judgment, fear. Instead, she just looked tired. I'm not asking you to be someone else, she said. I'm asking you not to lie about who you are. Then she walked away. Jaewon stood there long after she'd gone. The sun cut harsh shadows across the pavement. His phone buzzed. A message from his mother. Well done. He deleted it. 2 weeks later, Freya texted him an address. Not the apartment. Somewhere in Yongsan, a neighborhood he didn't operate in, didn't control. He showed up because the alternative was questions. It was a cafe. Smaller than the first one. Street-level windows. Mismatched chairs. The kind of place where students studied and freelancers worked. Warm lighting. Noise. Life. Freya sat near the back, papers spread across the table. Jaewon approached and several heads turned. He didn't fit here, too sharp, too controlled. His presence disrupted the casual atmosphere like a wrong note in music. She glanced up. Sit. He did. What is this? This is where I work when I'm not at the clinic. She gestured to the papers, supply chain logistics, distribution schedules, budget reports. I needed a neutral space. Somewhere neither of us owns. Jaewon scanned the room. No one paid attention to him now. They'd looked, assessed, dismissed. It unsettled him. Why am I here? He asked. Because we're supposed to be married, and married people occasionally exist in the same space. She handed him a menu. Order something. I'm not hungry. Then order coffee. Sit there. Work on your phone. I don't care. She returned to her papers. Just be here. He stared at her. She wasn't testing him, wasn't performing. She was just working, like he was furniture. He ordered coffee he wouldn't drink. An hour passed. She made calls, filled out forms, argued with someone in English about shipment costs. He checked emails, reviewed contracts, sent terse replies to subordinates. They didn't speak. But it wasn't hostile. It was something else. Something he didn't have a name for. When she finally closed her laptop, she looked at him. This work, what I do, it's going to put me in places you don't control, around people you don't trust. I know. And you're going to have to be okay with that. Jaewon set down his phone. Are you? Am I what? Okay with being around people I don't trust. In places I can't control. He leaned forward slightly. Because that's what being married to me means. There are people who'll see you as leverage, as a weakness. Freya's expression didn't change. Let them try. I'm serious. So am I. She held his gaze. I've worked in refugee camps, in regions where supply trucks get hijacked, where being a woman with dark skin makes you a target twice over. Her voice stayed level. I'm not fragile, and I'm not your responsibility. You are now. No, I'm your wife. That's different. He wanted to argue, wanted to explain the difference between the threat she knew and the threat she didn't, but she'd already gone back to her papers. 3 days later, Freya visited a clinic in his territory. Jaewon didn't know until he got a call from one of his men. Sir, there's a woman here, says she's your wife. She's asking questions about supply access. He drove there himself. The clinic was small, old building, government-funded but barely, the kind of place that survived on donations and volunteer work. He walked in. The waiting area went quiet. A child playing near the window stopped, stared, then looked away. A nurse at the reception desk shifted, body angling slightly to block the hallway behind her, and Freya, standing near the supply room door, noticed both. She looked at Jae-won, then at the nurse, then back at him. She didn't say anything. She didn't have to. He saw it in her eyes, the recognition, the understanding. She knew exactly what his presence meant here, what it had always meant. "Let's go," he said quietly. Freya nodded once, gathered her things, thanked the staff in Korean. No one responded. Outside, the air felt heavier. They walked to his car in silence, got in. He started the engine but didn't drive. "Igeon seon tegi anioseo." The words came out rougher than he intended. This wasn't a choice. Freya turned to look at him. "When I was 16, he said, my mother gave me a choice. Join the family business or leave with nothing. No name, no protection, no future." He gripped the steering wheel. "I chose survival. And the tattoos? Proof that I belonged, that I'd committed." She was quiet for a long moment. "What did you enforce?" she asked. "Everything." Jae-won didn't answer her question immediately. He pulled out of the parking lot, drove 3 blocks, then stopped at an empty riverside overlook, killed the engine. "Immigration enforcement," he said. "Business permit denials, lease terminations for non-compliant tenants." He stared through the windshield. "The organization owns buildings across 6 districts. We decide who stays, who works, who gets approved." Freya's hands rested in her lap. "Still, people like you," he continued. "Dark skin, foreign names, wrong documentation. They don't get past the application stage, and if they do, they don't last long." He turned to face her. "I was the one who made sure of that." She didn't flinch. "For how long?" she asked. 12 years. The number hung between them like smoke. "And now?" Her voice was careful, measured. "Now I do it from an office instead of a doorway." He looked back at the river. "The work hasn't changed, just the distance." Freya nodded slowly, not approval, just acknowledgement. "Do you want to stop?" she asked. The question caught him off guard. No one had ever asked him that. "I don't know," he said honestly. "Then figure it out." She opened the car door. "Because I can live with who you were. I can even live with who you are." She stepped out, leaned down to look at him, "But I can't live with someone who's too afraid to choose." She walked toward the railing, stood there looking at the water. Haewon got out, joined her. They didn't speak for a long time. Finally, she said, "I'm not asking you to be a hero. I'm asking you to stop being the villain. It's not that simple. It never is." He wanted to explain the cost, the consequences of walking away, what his mother would do, what the organization would do, but Freya already knew. She'd married him knowing exactly what he was. And she was still here. That meant something. 4 months passed. Jae-won started small. Approvals that should have been denials. Applications that didn't get lost in bureaucracy. He didn't announce it, didn't make speeches, just stopped enforcing certain rules. His mother noticed within 6 weeks. The meeting was inevitable. She called him to the main office. Evening, after most staff had left. Just the 2 of them, and the weight of everything unsaid. Madame Kang didn't sit. She stood by the window, back to him. "You're creating inconsistencies," she said. "I'm adjusting policies. You're undermining structure." She turned. Her face was stone. 3 foreign-owned businesses in Gangnam received lease renewals last month. Businesses we would have terminated 2 years ago. They're profitable, compliant, no violations. That's not the point. Then what is? Control. She moved closer. We maintain power by maintaining rules. Visible rules. Enforced rules. The moment we start making exceptions, we signal weakness. Jae-won met her gaze. Or we signal evolution. Evolution. She said the word like it tasted wrong. "Is that what your wife calls it?" He said nothing. "She's changed you," Madame Kang continued. "Made you soft, made you question systems that have kept this family secure for 3 generations. She's made me think. Thinking is dangerous when you're supposed to be leading. His mother's voice dropped. You have a responsibility to this family, to this organization, not to strangers who will never be loyal to you. Jaewon stood. Maybe loyalty isn't enough anymore. The silence that followed was glacial. Onulburo, Neon Gutia. As of today, you're finished. Madam Kang's voice didn't rise, didn't need to. You're removed from operational decisions. You'll maintain your title, attend necessary functions, but enforcement, approvals, policy, all of it goes through me now. She stepped back. Consider it probation. Jaewon's jaw worked. You can't. I already have. Behind him, the office door opened. 3 senior members entered, all older, all loyal to his mother. They didn't look at him. One older man in a gray suit stepped forward, bowed slightly toward Madam Kang, then left without a word. Another checked his phone. His expression was unreadable. He didn't bow, just walked out. The third remained, eyes forward, waiting for instructions. Madam Kang looked at Jaewon one last time. You wanted to choose. This is the consequence. She left. The room emptied. Jaewon stood alone in the office where he'd been trained, where he'd learned every rule, every tactic, every method of control. None of it mattered now. He pulled out his phone, texted Freya. It's done. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again, then good. 5 years later, Jaewon received an envelope, no return address, hand-delivered to the apartment by a courier who wouldn't identify the sender. Inside was a single photograph. The cafe in Yongsan, the one where Freya used to work. Same angle, same window, same table. Empty. No note, no message, just the image. He stared at it for a full minute, then he put on his jacket and drove there. The cafe was still open, same mismatched chairs, same warm lighting, but the owner had changed. New staff, different menu. He stood outside, looking through the window. The table where they used to sit was occupied. A student with textbooks, headphones in. Unaware, Jaewon's phone buzzed. Unknown number, we remember. His blood went cold. He turned, scanning the street. No one suspicious, no one watching. But they were there, somewhere. Old members, old loyalty. People who hadn't forgotten what he'd walked away from. The message was clear. You can leave, but the past doesn't. He deleted the text, pocketed the phone, didn't go inside the cafe, just walked back to his car and drove home. Home was different now. Not the sterile apartment from year one. A house, small, reasonable, in a neighborhood where no one knew his family name. Freya's car was in the driveway. He parked, sat for a moment, then went inside. She was in the kitchen, cooking, something with garlic and ginger. The smell filled the space. You're late, she said without turning. Something came up. Work? Something like that. She plated the food, set it on the table, 2 portions. He sat across from her. Ara's asleep, Freya said. Their daughter, 3 years old, unaware of everything her father used to be. Jaewon nodded. They ate in comfortable silence. Later, after Freya had gone to bed, he checked on Ara. She slept with one arm thrown over her stuffed rabbit, dark curls against the pillow, her mother's face, his stubbornness. He stood in the doorway for a long time. Then he went to his office, pulled the photograph from his jacket, stared at the empty table. Power didn't leave him, it just changed shape. The photograph stayed in his desk drawer, hidden beneath tax documents and old contracts. He didn't show Freya, didn't mention the message. For 3 weeks, nothing happened. No more envelopes, no more texts. Just silence. But silence in his world had never meant safety. Jaewon started checking the rearview mirror more often, taking different routes home, noting which cars appeared twice in the same week, old habits surfacing like muscle memory. Freya noticed on a Thursday evening. He'd walked the perimeter of their house before coming inside, checked the locks twice, positioned himself at dinner so he could see both the front door and the kitchen window. What's wrong? She asked. Nothing. She set down her fork. Jae-won. He looked at Ara. She was smashing peas with her fingers, humming a song from a cartoon, oblivious, safe. Not now, he said quietly. Freya's eyes narrowed, but she nodded, waited until Ara was in bed before cornering him in the hallway. Talk. He pulled out his phone, showed her the deleted message thread. He'd screenshotted it before erasing it. We remember. Freya read it. Her expression didn't change, but her breathing did. Slower, more controlled. When? 3 weeks ago, and you didn't tell me. I was handling it. Handling it how? Her voice stayed level, but there was an edge now. By checking locks, by watching the street, by keeping your daughter's mother in the dark. Jae-won exhaled. I didn't want you to worry. I'm not worried, I'm angry. She crossed her arms. We agreed, no lying about things that affect safety. This affects safety. He couldn't argue. Who sent it? She asked. I don't know. Could be anyone from the old structure. People who lost income when I stopped enforcing. People who think I betrayed the family. And what do they want? Fear, compliance, maybe revenge. He leaned against the wall, or maybe just to remind me that I don't get to disappear. Freya was quiet for a moment. Then she pulled out her own phone, opened her contacts, scrolled. What are you doing? He asked. Calling the security consultant I use for the clinic supply routes. He's ex-military, discreet, good with threat assessment. She looked up. Unless you have someone better? Jae-won stared at her. She wasn't panicking, wasn't demanding they run or hide. She was solving the problem. No, he said, that works. Good, she dialed. Spoke in rapid Korean, then English, gave their address, hung up. He'll be here tomorrow morning. We'll set up a security plan, cameras, new protocols, whatever we need. Jae-won nodded slowly. And Jae-won? She stepped closer. Next time someone threatens our family, you tell me immediately. Not 3 weeks later, immediately. Understood. She went to check on Ara one more time, leaving him standing in the dark hallway. He'd spent 12 years enforcing power through fear. Now his wife was protecting their family with logistics and competence. The irony wasn't lost on him. The consultant came at dawn, installed cameras in 3 hours, gave them panic codes, emergency contacts, exit strategies. You expecting something specific? He asked Jae-won. No, just being prepared. The consultant nodded, didn't push, packed his equipment and left. Freya made coffee, set a cup in front of Jae-won without asking if he wanted it. So what happens now? She asked. We wait. For what? To see if they escalate, or if this was just noise. And if they escalate? Jae-won wrapped both hands around the mug. Then I deal with it. How? He didn't answer. Freya sat across from him. You're not going back to that life. We agreed. I'm not going back, but I can't just ignore threats. I'm not asking you to ignore them. I'm asking you not to become what you were trying to leave behind. She held his gaze. There's a difference between protecting your family and returning to old patterns. What do you want me to do? Wait until they show up at our door? No, I want you to be smart, careful, strategic. She leaned forward, not violent. He wanted to tell her violence was the only language some people understood, but she already knew that, and she was asking him to find another way anyway. 2 months passed. No more messages, no more photographs. Either they'd moved on or they were waiting for him to relax. Jae-won didn't relax. He kept the cameras running, kept checking cars, kept his old contacts informed that he wasn't a threat, but wasn't defenseless either. Freya expanded the clinic's reach, opened a second distribution site, hired 3 new coordinators. Ara started preschool. Life moved forward. But Jae-won never stopped watching. One evening, after Ara had fallen asleep between them during a movie, Freya looked at him across their daughter's small sleeping form. You're still carrying it, she said quietly. What? The weight, the vigilance, the expectation that everything will collapse. He wanted to deny it, couldn't. "I don't know how to stop," he admitted. "You don't have to stop, you just have to let me help carry it." She reached across Ara's back, found his hand. "You're not alone anymore. You haven't been for 5 years." Jaewon looked down at their hands, hers steady, his tense. Slowly, he loosened his grip. Late that night, after Ara was in her own bed and Freya was asleep beside him, Jaewon lay awake. He thought about the door he'd stood at 12 years ago, the woman he'd turned away, the choice he'd made because it was easier than questioning. He thought about the cafe table, empty, waiting, a reminder that the past never fully disappeared. He thought about his mother's office. The moment she'd stripped his authority, the older man who'd bowed and left, the others who'd stayed silent. And he thought about Ara, her laugh, her questions, her complete trust that the world was safe because her parents said it was. Power hadn't left him. It had just changed shape. He no longer controlled who entered buildings or signed leases or enforced rules that kept entire communities in fear. But he controlled this, his house, his family, the choice to stay vigilant without becoming what he'd escaped, the choice to protect without destroying. It wasn't redemption, it was just different. And maybe that was enough. He closed his eyes. The cameras kept recording, the locks stayed secure, and in the morning Ara would wake up safe. That was the only power that mattered now. Some people think leaving the past behind means it stops following you, but power doesn't disappear, it transforms. And sometimes the hardest choice isn't walking away, it's staying vigilant long enough to protect what you've built. If this story made you think about the cost of change, hit that like button. And if you want more stories about people rebuilding themselves one difficult choice at a time, subscribe so you don't miss our next upload.